So every script is going to start the same. The first section is always the opening, the introduction, whatever it's called in your organization. That's just it. Now, I do probably the bulk of my training is on that, especially for phone sales, because the average person, especially when you're starting off, that's where you're going to struggle probably the most. And it's not about overcoming objections. This is the whole thing. Everybody goes into this, I got to know this, I got to know this. What do I say when they say this? What do I say this? That's not a conversation. And now you're doing something to somebody, not something for them. Just be a conversationalist and go through there. But you got to have the opening in there.
If you are brand new to telesales and maybe what you're saying is not working or you just don't know what to say, well, this episode is for you because I have my good friend, Mr. Tony G, all the way from South Carolina. I call him the final expense professor. And today he's going to break down why it's so important that first-year agents in the final expense space need to have a proven script. Tony, welcome to the podcast. Will you say what's up to everyone real quickly?
What is up? Thank you so much, Mr. Sevilla, Saliva, Salvador. You know how that goes. I hear your introductions all the time of how you get talk to everybody. Pleasure for me to call you a friend. I love what you are doing right now, especially giving back to the industry. I know what it's done for you, and that's where we have that same thing. So I appreciate the opportunity to even be able to talk to you and your audience.
Absolutely. And I'm excited about it, Tony, because it's interesting to me in our industry. Of course, I'm on the Medicare side, but I do life insurance. I started in the FE side years ago. You're more on the FE, the final expense side, but it's interesting to me that how a script, especially if somebody's doing telesales, is so often overlooked. And so let's start here.
Yeah.
Let's start here real quickly. If we were to go back, knowing what you know now, why would you tell an agent that they don't need to wing it on the phone?
Yeah. It's like you've heard that before, maybe, right? Everybody thinks they got it. And that's one of the components of how I kind of, and I've started to kind of verbalize this a little better as you get older, your words start coming out a little bit better. One of the components that gets inside everybody's head is that selling, how they process selling. And for most people, they think selling is something you do to somebody instead of something you do for them. And so when it's something you do to them, then it's, I'm slick. I got the gift of gab. I can sell ice to Eskimos. And the people that see that are like, ew, I feel bad. And we've all had that feeling. Everybody wants to buy. Nobody wants to feel sold. And so when you get that, then they're like, well, I don't know. And so the first thing they're going to look at is, okay, do I have to read this thing? And I got my own personality and all these things. And there's all sorts of reasons that's a disaster, which we don't have that much time because we'd be on here for 5 hours. I literally have trainings on that all day long. But you've got to have your mindset in the point where you can read something that resonates here so that it doesn't sound foreign. Otherwise, you're just a telemarketer, and that's why so many people just churn through because what they're saying doesn't fit internally with who they actually are. And I know you know a lot about that as well because of your background, all that good stuff as well. I can keep going on that. I don't want to. If you want me to go deeper there,
I think it's interesting. Yeah, I think it's interesting you say that because, my personality, maybe some of you watching or listening to this today are the same way. I'm spontaneous. I love shooting from the hip, guns blazing, shooting in the sky. But I had to learn that if I was going to be an effective communicator, there had to be a process. There had to be a system. There had to be a script. That's what we're going to be talking about today. So I'm glad that you brought that up right out of the gate.
That is key. You use the key component. We're already birds of a feather. A presentation is not there for you to educate your client on your product. It doesn't matter.
Right.
It's what it does for them. That's all they want to know. And so if you sit down and you're like, okay, I'm going to read this script, and when it's done, they're going to know every underwriter. They practically can read the underwriting guide, or they know everything about Medicare there is to know, and all these. Which is impossible, but that is not what you're going to bore people to tears. And when people start thinking that, again, I got to do it to them. I got to stand up and tell them this. There needs to be a process to work through. Your presentation, for me, when I do my training, it's not to get a yes, not to get a forced yes. It's to go through the process. It's to navigate through the no's. Now, you and I share the gift of gab. so we can just shoot from the
Right.
hip and do it. But that's not reproducible. That's one of the things I'm going to talk about. There's only two reasons for a script, but that's one of them as well. You cannot have something that if somebody looks at me, I mean, if my kid was kidnapped and somebody, said, "Hey, you've got one client and you have to sell them," I'm going to be able to do things and say things that the average person can't because God blessed me with a mouth and a way
Sure.
to think and talk like nobody else can on a normal level. But that can't be ever
Right.
reproduced again. And so, to your point, that is key. You've got to have a process, and the key component, the central part, especially when you're new, especially when you're new. And I wish, going back to your original question, I wish when I first started, because I was talented, I did have a dynamic personality. And when I was young, I had energy all over the place. And it was like, yeah, just set Tony
Yeah.
loose, just let him go, give him the stuff. And I was successful in spite of the fact that I didn't even know what I was doing because I sold on personality. And I'm a likable guy. I'm a big goofy guy. I make jokes about myself and everything else and it made people relax. I could sell, but it never took off. I never built anything. It was never sustaining because eventually, you know, you don't have anything to stand on beside yourself. And when I'm not feeling good, that affects that affects your presentation at that point because I don't have anywhere to go.
Yeah.
I'm not feeling good. Need the script for that part of it. So you're key
Yeah.
on with the actual part of having a process. Process is key. Center part of that is going to be
Yeah.
a script. So the part of that, I'll just keep talking until you cut me off here. The part of that, there's only two components, and this is to answer your question. Why is it important? If you're a first year, if I'm talking to you and you're just starting or just thinking about getting started, or you've been and you're frustrated, I would say this. There's two things you need to consider. One, the reason you have to have a script is it makes you predictable. The behavior becomes predictable. And I don't remember who it was. I want to say Carnegie because he's got a hall named after him for speakers. So um, I think whoever it was said, when you get a good speech, don't change the speech, change the audience. And
Yeah.
that's what we do. Every single time I pick up the phone, I'm talking to a new audience. Every time when you go out into the field and you talk to a group or somebody does seminars or whatever the case is, you have a new audience. But that speech should be the same every single time. You know when to pause, you know when to talk, you know what question's coming next. I tell the same goofy jokes every single time. Anybody that's gone through my training, they start rolling their eyes as soon as we get to certain components. There's like, here comes the phone joke. He's going to tell it again because people laugh. It's just what it is.
Right.
Why would I change that? It makes them relax. So you've got to have
Sure.
to be able to say the same thing over and over and over again because it's going to build. It's like anything we do. The more we do of it, the more repetition, you get better at it.
Sure.
So if you're doing the
Right.
same thing every single time, you're going to get better. That builds competence. The more competent, so you get more apps, you get more clients. Now your confidence level goes up. Confidence builds more competence. Competent, and it's a swirl upwards. It works opposite because if you don't have the same thing and you're just winging it and you have a bad day and your confidence goes down,
Yeah.
now your competence is suffering as well, and you're screwing yourself into the ground at that point. I mean, it's a downward spiral. So
Yeah.
it can go both ways on that. I have more, but
Yeah, I like what you're
I'll let you
saying,
talk
and it's
here.
interesting. Yeah, no, it's interesting that you bring that up today because we were doing a training here in office with some agents and one of my assistants, and we were doing cross-selling training. And I had on the board a lot of agents don't cross-sell because they lack confidence,
Right.
but they have no confidence because they have no competence. But they have no competence and confidence because they haven't been consistently putting in the reps, right, to strategically ask and present this to their clients. So I
Correct.
definitely love that you're bringing that up because what happens a lot of times, and you know this, Tony, is the desire to know everything
Oh Lord.
often is the enemy of doing anything at all.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Right.
I like that saying too.
And
I'm going to write
so,
that one down.
yeah, so I love that you're bringing that up. So let me kind of play the devil's advocate here because we're talking about a script. What about to the person that's listening or watching this today and they go, yeah, but the script is probably going to be dependent on the leads, because you know how our industry is, Tony. There's good leads and there's bad leads, but I've seen you challenge people, right? I've seen you challenge people. I saw you recently in a group where you said, give me all those bad leads and I promise you I'll do something with them. So does the lead really matter that much if you have a good script?
Oh, there's $1 million question. Now you're setting me up to get hate mail. So this, this is what's going to happen on that one. There's good and bad of everything. My philosophy on
Yeah.
leads is you have bad leads. There are bait and switch. There's all that stuff out there where they say one thing in the lead, and when you get it, it's not the same thing. They put something up there and they sell it to 17 people. Okay, so
Sure.
yes, there are bad leads. Other end of the spectrum,
Okay.
you can spend money on golden, high intent, all the rest of the stuff, on and on.
Yeah.
Um, and so I will say that you got your extremes. Pretty much everything else in the middle. Again, I'll just go to MySpace. Final expense people, for the most part, are going to be getting Facebook leads, and there's only so many ways you can skin a cat. It's a
Sure.
lead. It goes somewhere. Facebook
Right.
puts it up there. You get a good ad. Maybe the ad copy is what's pulling people in, whatever the case is. But the bottom
Yeah.
line is, no matter what, we have people within, when we start people off, we put them in a bulk lead uh, group where they can call from into it for free so they can get their feet wet and start talking to
Yeah.
people. Now, these aren't like 3-year-old leads. We're talking 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. They request the information. We just haven't been able to get a hold of
Sure.
it. So, right now today, literally right before we get on here, I have a representative as of 12:30 at lunchtime, her time. It's already almost at 3,000 on the day, calling leads that are at
Wow.
least 3 months old. And she's got her own leads coming in herself. She's had her own done for you. She's got her own leads coming in too. It's not like she doesn't have access to them. This is a seasoned representative. So do the leads matter? Not if you know, to your point now. Now I'm going to go ahead and take things. Not if you know what you're saying. Not if you know what you're saying. So I will say a good script will beat bad leads all day long. That's
Mm.
just me. Because
Right.
if you, it's all psychology. It's what goes on here. I believe, again, I'm here to help you, Rob. I'm not here to take
Mm-hmm.
advantage of you. I'm not doing something to you. You requested the information. Who cares if it was 6 months ago? Even if you already have coverage, I still am going to talk to you. We have the saying in
Sure.
our organization is, why am I talking to a 72-year-old who doesn't have insurance? Because they haven't talked to me.
Mm.
That's the answer.
That's good.
You start with that
Yeah.
mindset. Now the script takes over because you know what you're saying is talking to that person. But our job is to evoke out of it. You've got to do that. Now, I'll tell you why, and I'm going to go back over here. I wrote the script that we use within our organization. It's sitting, here's me, this is I work, here's mine sitting right here. Now we have a CRM that puts it up on the screen. You can go through it, click on buttons, gives you objections. Everything's right there in front of you. I have the same CRM, but I have the script right here. Well, Tony, why do you have a script right there? You're the one that wrote it. Surely you know where it's going. Yeah, I do. It keeps me on the rails. I like to talk.
Yeah.
you, you and I had to sit here and
Yeah.
have this conversation before we started this. Okay,
Yeah.
let's stay focused because you and we could go for probably 4 hours and not
Yeah.
even blink and go, nobody's going to
Right.
watch this because we went way too long. So, but if you don't
Right.
have that, I will find myself. And if you're brand new, this will happen. And if you've done this any amount of time, it already has happened to you. If you're in the field or if you're on the phone, you sit down with Miss Mary and you sit there, and an hour later, you've heard about the mole on her back, or all of her nieces and
Right.
nephews, the dog next door, and all that stuff. And it's just like, oh, I got to go. And you haven't talked anything about what you want to do. And if that lead is 6 months old, maybe they're talking to you about the policy they have and why they didn't have it. And all these things are going, what's kept from doing all this. The script
Yeah.
is there to reel that part in and to keep you on the straight line. I'm not a huge Jordan Belfort fan because he doesn't align with me ethically, obviously, but that's a whole other story. Sales wise, the guy knows what he's doing.
Sure.
And the straight line system
Absolutely.
is the straight line system. The fastest way for you to
Right.
get from hello to application is not doing this, going all over the place. It's a straight
Yeah.
line. That's what a script will do. Does it matter? No, I started when I was originally introduced to phone sales and getting out into the field, and I came here, it was year-old mortgage protection leads. Well,
Right.
they clearly have been in the house for a year. They've clearly seen everything. They've got thousands of, they've got their, and cut my teeth on those things. But I didn't know any better. So I just went out
Sure.
and I pitched them. They handed me a piece of paper, said, read this, say this, set appointments, going out. A couple weeks later, I've written 10 grand. They're like, what is going on? Everybody's looking around. I'm like, I didn't know they were age leads. I didn't know any better. Funny how that works. That's why I make those challenges to
Yeah.
people when they say that. I'm like, it doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me at all. Good scripting should keep
Yeah.
you getting from point A to point B every time.
Yeah. So good information that you're sharing there. By the way, if you're getting value out of this so far, please take a moment to comment, like, subscribe. This just helps us get this valuable information out to other brand new agents like yourself. Okay, so let's dive in, Tony. What are the different elements, right? What are the different elements that a successful script needs to have? Is there some kind of hook involved? Is there some kind of wording? Like, can you break that down for us?
Sure. The general consensus, and I'm a big fan of the Life Insurance Academy. So shout out to Roger and the guys over there, and Chris and Zach and all those guys. And you'll learn that they will go from a Daniel Pink book, and you go through the 5 components of a one call close. I had always
Sure.
believed that. I just didn't know what the verbiage was until I got around and then put that in there. So those are the components you'll look for. You got to have belief, you got to have trust, you got to have stakes, you got to have options, and you have a solution. Somewhere in there that has to happen. So every script is going to start the same. The first section is always the opening, the introduction, whatever it's called in your organization. That's just it. Now,
Sure.
I do probably the bulk of my training is on that, especially for phone sales, because the average person, especially when you're starting off, that's where you're going to struggle probably the most. And it's not about overcoming objections. This is the whole thing. Everybody goes into this. I got to know this. I got to know this. What do I say when they say this? What do I say this? That's not a conversation. And now you're doing something to somebody, not something for them. Just be a conversationalist and go through there. But you got to have the opening in there. Our next section would then, again, if you're going to start with the belief system, now you got to build trust. Trust components. We got a triangle of trust. Got to have empathy. Got to have authority. You put those two things together early on. That has to be early on. Otherwise, you're just transactional. Now, there are people that do that. I'm not a proponent of that. I think you should make a relationship. We are doing this. I take what I do extraordinarily seriously. I'm not interested in just slewing stuff against the wall and seeing what sticks and hoping to keep my my retention at a level where we make some money. I actually want to help people out. So we spend time in the empathy part, getting to know the client, a good discovery. A lot of people would call it discovery, and going from there. Then I have everything I need to actually have a conversation. I'm not trying to, again, sell to them and do something to them and give them a product I want them to have. The goal is to figure out what they want, figure out their goals. Right. And you can only do that by asking questions, not reading a script. Now, that's where you're talking about both sides of your mouth now. Your script should be dynamic and enough that it should have open-ended questions. The questions you ask, like a good attorney, you should always know the answers to. Anything that's open-ended on this side, it should still be leading in a specific direction. You should kind of know where it's going, but you want them to start telling you the story. And then you just kind of work your way through that. If you do all of those things enough, do the tie downs throughout, asking, questions, it's a natural progression at the end. The solution is Tony, not the product. Anybody can buy life insurance. Anybody can buy Medicare. Anybody can do any of that stuff. They don't need Rob. I would love to have Rob as my agent. Yes. Not quite old enough for that, but I would love that.
Yeah.
But I can get Medicare without Rob. I can go somewhere else. I can go online. I don't even need a human. I can go to Medicare.gov, right? And I can sign up myself, which is silly, but that's a whole nother story too. But if you're going to put it in there, that's where the value comes from. The scripting should make you sound human and lead them in a path where they're going to say, oh, I like this Rob guy. I like this Tony guy. I like this Anthony guy. Whoever it is they're talking to, they should feel that connection with you through everything that you're doing. That's the whole purpose of the scripting and the components of it. But it should do kind of like an hourglass. You start really wide with generic. You work your way into very specific things. You get right down to the brass tacks. This is how much it's going to cost. You go through the application, then you work your way back out again until you're talking about generic stuff again, and then the call's over, no matter what. If the process does not look like that, if it does not have those 5 components, reach out to me. I'll send you my script, and I'll go. Have something that at least will work. I can tell you that at least I can give you stuff that works.
And real quickly, go back and reference the book. What was the name of the book? Because I'll put it down in the video description when this comes out. What was the book?
I don't know what the name of the book is, but it's Daniel Pink. Um,
Okay, I'll
that
go research it. Yeah.
and Roger, you know, did a speech on. You can do the YouTube on that too. Five fundamentals of a one
Yeah.
call close. Um,
Okay. And I'll put the Life Insurance Academy link to their podcast as well.
good
It's
stuff.
definitely a must if you're brand new in the life insurance space and if you want
Yes.
continuing education as well. So I hear people, they're probably thinking this, well, because Tony said he was Mr. Charismatic and he can go, he's got the personality and all that. I'm introverted. I'm, fill in the blank,
Right.
whatever.
Right.
How does a script work for people like that?
That ironically brings us to point number two. First one was why you need a script first year. You got to be predictable, saying the same thing over and over and over, build your confidence, competence, all that stuff. The second most important thing is being reproducible. I cannot reproduce Tony's natural talent and ability. That's God given. I woke up this way. Okay. That's just the way I'm built. Okay. I can't reproduce that. Well, I shouldn't say that because I got six kids. So I'm trying to, but that's a whole nother story. But you can't do that. And inherited two more. So I'm trying to put my mark on the world that way. But if you're going to build an organization, obviously cloning is illegal. We can't do those type of things. So the only way to do that is the process. Is the process a reproducible process? So now you're going to get into exactly what you're saying, where people are going to look and say, is that natural talent or is that learned? And so many have asked me at this stage of life and what's making you go back in and why are you building a team and why are you doing telesales and final expense specifically. When I've done pretty much everything in the industry for the last 30 years, one way or another, I've had access to every product out there. I chose the simplest product to learn. I had that conversation many times. The simplest product to learn and the simplest product to teach, not to us, to the client, because it doesn't have a lot of bells and whistles. You don't have to go into all these other things. What that means is now I can write a script that anybody who doesn't have a personality, doesn't have sales skills, whatever they want to say about themselves, which we undo that day one. You won't even come to work here. I say work. That's a silly word. I won't partner up with people that can't get past that negative mindset. That's again another training. Um, it is about wanting to help somebody else. As long as you have that, I tell that all the time. You've got this because I can't train that. I can train everything else. It's a learned behavior. I look at the best analogy I have is this. I have one of my favorite actors, not the, but he's definitely top three. Um, and I'm just having a brain fart right now. Denzel Washington. Good grief. That's what happens when you play football. Okay, you wake up at 55, you can't remember what you had for breakfast. And it's 9:30. So it is one of those things. Denzel has a way of speaking. You can close your eyes. If he's in the movie, you know when he's on screen. And unless he has a very specific role that requires him to have like an accent or something like that, if he's playing a thug or he's playing a captain of an airline, I hear Denzel. Now, Denzel is reading a script. He's not saying what he wants to say. He's reading a script from here, obviously, because that's why they get paid big bucks to do what they do. But it's still Denzel. It's reproducible. And we've seen movies that get remade. And what do? We compare them against the original movie. Songs get remade. We compare them against the original. So that's a little better than the original. Or that's not better than the original, but it's the same. That's why a script is important. One, you have to have it so you are predictable, so you can gain your own success. And then also, it's so that you can teach it to other people. Because that's how, I don't want to go too deep into this, but because that's not what we're talking about today. But there's only two ways we get out of the field or off the phone inside of our industry. It's quitting or some form of reproduction. You're going to have yours for you in the Medicare world is based around the product because the residuals are phenomenal. NBU every day I think about it, I'm like, man, what was I thinking? But it is what it is. That's there. Mine is people. Every single time I teach somebody else how to sell insurance, there's a little piece of them. Typically, it's you make $1, I make a dime. That's just generally how it works. and that's in the whole industry. So by having a script that isn't based on Tony, I can remove me out of it completely. You can read the script. It doesn't sound like Tony. I generic it, put it down, use very simple words. Anybody can read it. And now you can reproduce yourself and put yourself in a position for money beyond anything, growth, and helping more people than you even know what to do with. So perfect question, because I was trying to figure out how we're going to get to number two. It's like I said one, they're going to say, where'd number two come from? But you just walked right into it. So perfect.
So Tony, tons of value. Thank you for, sharing that information. As we get ready to close today, let me ask you this, because maybe there's some people watching or listening to us today that go, okay, you talked about what the script needs to have. You talked about doesn't really matter, personality type because of the duplication and being able to replicate that. What kind of results are you seeing? Like this script here, because somebody is probably out there going, why should I listen to Tony G? What type of results, as much as you can share, like, are you seeing people use the script to get $10,000 weeks, $40,000 months? Can you share some of that?
Sure.
Obviously with keeping names out of it, but just sharing as much as you can.
Sure. I answer that question the same way every single time, because everybody always is going to ask me or anybody else. It doesn't matter if you're going to any other thing. Your career is a three-legged stool. So your career is the top here, and those three legs. You've got to have leads. You've got to have people to talk to. Some way, somehow, you've got to have people to talk to. You've got to have some form of training. There's got to be scripting of some kind, process of some kind, something that goes along there. And then the last component is work ethic. Those three things, you can't have one without. It's a three-legged stool. So if I don't know how long you work, I can give you all the training in the world, give you, access to leads, all that stuff. You don't work, you're not going to make any money. You can work like a dog. You've got all the training in the world, but you don't have access to people to talk to. You can't make any money. So what I'm about to answer, I'm not doing the political answer. I'm just saying, I don't know. That's why I don't get into the leads thing of, these leads are closing at 30%. Who's closing them at 30%? Am I closing them at 30%? Because I'll put my skill set against anybody, but that doesn't mean the average person can do that. Generally speaking, within the industry on a Facebook lead, you're between 8 and 10%, generally speaking. I like to try and get above that. But yes, as far as coming out of training, getting on phones, using the script, the people that follow it, I'll give you one example, and this to answer your question. I had a training group. I had one young lady who had no background in telesales and really sales as a whole, and I had four other people that had come out of a telesales Medicare center, and it had closed, and they were just looking for something new to do over the phone. So I'm thinking, home run, natural fit, right? They're already used to being on the phone. They know how to overcome objections. They're used to talking to the clientele, everything else. By the end, we went through training. By the end of the week, everybody's on the phone. By the end of the week, every one of those four ladies and gentlemen bolted. Because the one who had no sales experience but followed the script to a T wrote like $5,000 first week out of the gate. So you have those stories. I've done trainings with people where they've come like to boot camps and stuff like that and just sat there and read and wrote 5,000-6,000 and where they left the boot camp, and then they left and went home and wrote another 5,000 or 6,000 as well. And then you have people that I had other people that it took one particular representative, it took her a couple months to get her feet under her. She wrote a couple deals here and there throughout the week, but then all of a sudden, bam, hit it, and it was a 12,000 week and never looked back again. So everybody learns on their own, but and I'm not going to take credit for the script is the key because it's the person. But if you got the work ethic, we'll give, you got to have somebody that's going to give the training. You cannot be out there on a lone wolf. We have things like Zoom rooms and everything else where because otherwise the four walls start closing in completely. But yes, you should be able to. And if you're looking at other opportunities or looking at, what Rob just asked there is a perfectly legitimate question to ask the person that you're about to put your life insurance career in their hands. I would want to see that, and I'd want to talk to a few people, as a matter of fact. I'd even take it a step further. I wish that, going back to your original question, day one when I started, because I bounced around with a lot of companies, I wish I would have asked more questions about the opportunity and the people that were already doing it and where the success was coming from. So I don't run from those questions, personally.
Yeah, no, I love that you bring it up. And this is the reason why I started this channel, because I want to see less and less agents drop out of this industry, because
Yes,
it's given so much to me and my family. I know it's given so much to you and your family. And like Tony said, we can't make you do anything. We can give you all the training and all the encouragement in the world, but it's that old saying, if it's going to be, it has to be up to
that's
me.
right.
You know, I tell our people, you got to get up and hunt every day,
That's right.
right? You got to get up and hunt every day. You got to get up and want to do something. Tony, if somebody goes, hey, I really like what this Tony guy was spitting today. He was spitting some good fire, and I want to connect with them. Maybe they want to join your team. Maybe they want to get into one of your coaching
Sure.
programs. What's the best way to do that?
I will probably the best way for me is I'll just give you my QR code so you can just put it down below or put it up here when we do
Okay.
this, and it gives you access to all my social media, my phone, and all that good stuff. You can pretty much find me.
Okay.
I tried to do at Tony G on every social media out there. So I'm trying to do more with YouTube. I'm trying to get more with Instagram and all that stuff just to kind of keep same as you. I want to give back as much as I can. What we do is not that hard. It really isn't. I really believe
Right.
anybody that wants to can do it. But I am open. Yes, my stuff is out there. Whatever we can put up there that you can reach out to me. You come through Rob. I normally give out stuff when I do stuff like this anyway. I got a little for final expense. I got a little sheet that I go through. That's the classic final expense person. So you kind of know who you're talking to because that's a component. So tell me you saw me on Rob, and I'll shoot that out to you as well. Or my openings, I've got another sheet that's got the top 3 openings we use to get people on the phone type of thing. But I'll bring value to anybody who comes from Rob's channel here whatsoever, because what he's doing is a phenomenal thing. Again, honored to be a part of it, Rob.
Yeah, no, thank you for coming on. And like I said, these last 30 minutes or so, tons of value. I know you're going to help tons of agents. And if you're brand new in telesales and you're just struggling, you're drowning, you're barely treading water, maybe reach out to somebody like Tony G. Get plugged into his coaching, get plugged into that script. And I promise you, you'll begin to see things turn around if you really want them to turn around. Or like he said, maybe you're contemplating. You've been searching YouTube and on the internet. You don't know left from right, who to join this, who to join that. Make sure you do your due diligence and interview that particular organization, because Tony will tell you this, alignment is key no matter what insurance vertical you choose, whether that's retirement, final expense, Medicare. Alignment is key. I'm a living testimony of that.
Yes, you are.
As well as many other thousands of agents in this industry. So I just want to say, listen, thank you for tuning in today. I pray this has encouraged you. God bless you guys, and we will see you on the next episode.